Hey everyone, welcome to my channel today. We are going to talk about what Taiwan can learn from Ukraine. Honestly, the conflict happening in East Europe is catching most people's attention around the world. But in Taiwan, as the second most dangerous tinderbox, similar potentials which can trigger the war have been there for long as well. And people in Taiwan are more anxious to follow the war in Ukraine than any other places because they know what could happen if the war does break out. And the reason they think like that is because the military standoff from China, which has been lasting for more than half a century. As we know, after the Civil War in 1949, Taiwan has been away from China mainland for over 70 years. But the military standoff has never stopped yet, even they entered the period of peacetime in 2000s. In fact, just in 1996, there was even a war triggering when the former president of Taiwan was trying to publicly express their desire for independence and then cause a huge military exercise from Beijing. And the US 7th Navy Fleet engaged in this risk to assist Taiwan. The end is Taiwan's president abandoned his independence speech because of America's pressure. At that moment, American top leaders were more likely to enter the Chinese market than support Taiwan's political gambling. It sounds really like the situation of Ukraine and Russia, right? A small government disengaged from a big government's ruling and then stand off for years. So when we look back at what happened before, it is clear that the biggest dilemma is one side wants to get rid and the other side doesn't. Well, such kind of story is not that strange on our planet, from Sinai Peninsula to Kashmir. But here are some obvious differences we must be clear. First, most countries in the world currently don't acknowledge the legality of Taiwan government, which simply means in their public statement, China is the legal leader of Taiwan. It means Taiwan cannot get support from most countries in the name of a state. Like smuggling and secret diplomacy always became normal for Taiwan to avoid sanctions from Beijing. Second, Taiwan is the isolated island and 97% of energy and 70% of its food is by import. So a full blocking must happen if the war comes. In fact, Taiwan has been suffering an energy shortage for years and even experienced power outage dozens of times since they reduced their nuclear energy after the 2011 Fukushima nuclear accident and import more gas and coal by shipping. This topic we can talk about more later if you guys love it. Well, some of you guys might say Taiwan can seek help from US forces in Japan if the conflict breaks out. Well, here we gotta know first, American government never make a clear commitment to give Taiwan military help, and today Ukraine has proved that you could only be assisted if America is your military ally. But unfortunately, Taiwan never get the promise ever. Moreover, China got overwhelming air and navy advantage over Taiwan, which is much more powerful than Russia. Based on the previous American military operations, they usually need several months for gathering to the battlefield, especially in a large-scale war like Gulf War in Iraq. So it is impossible to assemble and defeat such massive police attack from China in a very short time. Last, the weirdest thing is that China is the #1 economic partner of Taiwan. Wow, can you imagine you make money from the biggest enemy? Actually, Taiwan's half of its trade is based in China, but its investment in China is just 3% of the Chinese total foreign investment and 10% of Chinese trade volume. And dramatically, Taiwan's trade volume with China was still hugely growing. Honestly, this is absolutely the only scenario never happened in any other conflict area like North and South Korea or the Middle East. Since 2014, Taiwan has been trying to get rid of trade dependence on China and chasing more opportunities with the Southeast Asian countries. but it didn't make it. At least, they have to admit that China is still the best market partner for Taiwan. And in my view, the reason Taiwan can still be confident for depending much on China is more from a gambling mind, and that is the biggest risk. So, probably in the future, Taiwan will economically collapse before China's attack. Since we're talking about so many risks Taiwan could face in the future, is there any solution to get out of the dilemma? Sure, and the first step is active political negotiation, which obviously is the easiest way to keep peace from conflict. But the first reality is that Taiwan has almost no willingness to talk with Beijing. Since 2014, when the anti-ECFA movement, which was against being a full economic partner with China, happened, Taiwan has been more resisting the impact from China. Even a lot of Taiwanese still make money from there. In the military area, Taiwan began to more actively cooperate with America publicly, especially when Trump was in charge in 2016. So we can see Taiwan has been on the American side for very long and currently have no wish to talk about future negotiations with China. Second, there's no willingness to be together with China from most people in Taiwan. At least from current public opinion polls, only a very small percent support uniting with China in the near future. But here, we need to know it's not always like this in history. Back in the 1990s, a lot of Taiwanese was still looking forward to negotiating or even be part of China. And a switch to be against China was more because of the change in Taiwan's political game. When DPP, Taiwan Democratic Progressive Party, became the ruling party, no matter education or public opinion, began to focus more on local stuff, emphasize difference with China and reject having any relationship with China. And more importantly, from the very beginning, DPP's party platform is against the uniting with China, and that's why they did like that when they were in charge. Finally, no hate was born for no reason. Since Taiwan has been low economic growth for decades, making an outside enemy has been a nice way to get more votes for winning the election, and in fact, DPP benefited a lot from every conflict incident with China, like the anti-ECFA movement or supporting Hong Kong anti-government protests in 2019. Currently, DPP is still the ruling party in Taiwan, so given the previous history, they would definitely refuse to accept China as a political negotiator. Okay, if Taiwan doesn't consider political negotiation anymore, the only way is military preparation. However, the fact is, Taiwan's military force might be more fragile than the Ukrainian. First, Taiwan has a huge shortage of military troops. According to the data released by Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense, Taiwan needs about 190,000 troops for defense. However, since Taiwan abolished mandatory military service, the recruitment situation has been poor, and the number in combat department is much seriously low. Only the logistics, support, and administrative branches having a higher recruitment rate. And more dangerously, Taiwan's birth rate has been declining for decades, and the number has been below 300,000 since the year 2000. So it is a huge challenge to keep such a skilled force. And for bigger Chinese military pressure, a large number of accidents in Taiwan's Air Force in recent years has shown the serious shortage of soldiers. By the way, Taiwan is also difficult to upgrade their weapons, and a large percentage are still the old models of the last century because of Chinese political pressure and US military restrictions. At least, Taiwan does not have the same access to get the best fighter jet like F-35 as US allies such as Singapore or South Korea. The last thing is that The military service in Taiwan is only 4 months, compared to the 1 year in Ukraine and 3 years for Israeli men. For most young men, the daily routine in service period is more like working in a company and even have no training at midnight or on rainy days. Moreover, they barely had a lot of chance to touch the weapon for saving repairing expenses. Despite the Taiwan government recently announced they're going to restore 1 year military service. Based on the past social protests against the service reform, this extension would not be that easy either. Back to the topic of what Taiwan can learn. I guess this phrase can describe well. The only thing we learn from history is we learn nothing from there. At this moment, Taiwan's government is repeating what Ukraine has done, both politically and militarily, and currently, they have no thoughts to change what they would do. Meanwhile, America is already planning to move Taiwan's most important industry, chip manufacturing, to the US and Japan or South Korea to prevent supply chain risk from war, but not provided Taiwan with more advanced weapons. So all of the evidence shows that the United States is extremely likely to leave Taiwan alone to defend themselves against China when it comes to war. For the Taiwan side, ordering China to change its mind about giving up reunification is impossible because Taiwan does not have enough force to do that. Of course, it's not always easy for small countries to do that. For global politicals, it's finally decided by superpowers. But how to find a way to seek peace is still possible for Taiwan's politicals. At least they have time to prepare right now. As an important global manufacturing region, it is vital to think about how to avoid repeating what the government of Ukraine did. Like we always say that the future will have hope, but now it seems that Taiwan's future cannot avoid conflict. So how to make a change in the future is a big task for them.